to episode 4 of the Commanders Coalition podcast. I'm your host, Alex Williams.
I'm your host, Jacob Moss.
Today we're going to be talking about how to sell on TCGPlayer.
So, I guess a little bit to unpack here.
So, if you're looking to sell on TCGPlayer, this is the video for you, first of all. We're going to discuss how to sell on TCGPlayer, what to expect, and what cards are worth listing on TCGPlayer. So, to start, there are two types of selling on TCGPlayer. There is selling on the marketplace, which is what we do. We sell on the marketplace, and there's also selling on TCGPlayer buy list.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the buy list. It's the shorter one. It's not too much to cover here. It's the fastest way to sell cards because what you do is you just basically say what cards you have, and you send them to TCGPlayer.
Yep.
And they'll distribute it to the people that said that they would buy them.
Yep. So there's a list of game stores and people that want cards, and
they set the price they want to buy it for.
And then you send the cards to TCGPlayer, and they'll send them to them. It's the easiest way to sell cards because people are looking for cards. You're not putting cards out there to be sold. But you also get the least amount of profit because most of the people getting the cards are your local game stores, which
want to resell
the card.
And with this, you have to be very strict on the card grading. I mean, you should be strict everywhere, but TCGPlayer is even more strict about this. So you just got to be careful about that. And you always have to have tracking to your packages.
Every package has to be tracked when you do the buy list.
It's going to be like one large package, so you don't have to put tracking on 30,000 things.
No, it's usually just one.
Moving on. Okay. So then there's the marketplace, and the marketplace has a few different like classifications as for sellers go. So there's level 1 through 4, and those are for just the generic average person who makes an account to sell cards on TCGPlayer. So everyone starts at level 1, and when you're at level 1, you can only list 100 cards at a time, and your stock can only be valued up to $1,000, so you can't list a whole bunch of expensive cards. And then a single card can only be priced at $500, which is already more than most people would sell a card for. I mean, most people aren't selling cards that are more than $500, and usually it's not online on the internet, but you could. So I guess level 2, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so level 2, you must have 2 orders that have reached the EDD, which is the expected delivery date, and your feedback percentage is over 80%. We'll get into the feedback percentages and messaging in a later section later in the video. But basically, level 2, you can list up to 500 items, and up to $5,000 worth of cards can be listed. And one singular card cannot exceed $1,000. Not that you're probably going to sell a card that's over $1,000, but
especially not on TCGPlayer because
no, those cards should probably be sold other places. It's not really a great place to. I mean,
TCGPlayer is not bad.
It's harder to sell a card that expensive on TCG.
Yeah, there's more to worry about, and then you always have to put a lot on tracking in the envelope. You have to insure it, and then it's not the easiest thing to do at that point because it's so expensive. But I guess we can just move on to level 3. There's not a whole lot of difference here. You have to have 11 orders that have reached by the EDD and have a feedback of over 85%. And then at this point, you can list 50,000 items, which is more than anyone's ever going to have to.
Unless you're a local game store, you're probably not going to have more than 50.
Even then, 50,000 is a lot of cards to enter. Yeah, that's right. Unless you have about, lots and lots of tokens.
Team doing it.
Yeah. And then at this point, you can have $100,000 worth of cards. That's quite a bit of money. Yeah. It's more than the average person will have, and then one singular item can't exceed $20,000. Again, still more than the average person will need, but it's there.
And then level 4 is the final level. Once you reach to get to level 4, you have to have 51 orders that reach the EDD, and your feedback percentage must be over 90%. When you get to level 4, you can list unlimited items and basically unlimited money for each card, unlimited amount of cards, all that stuff, just unlimited everything. Yeah. And you also get access to custom shipping options, which allows you to change the price of shipping. We'll talk about that later. And you'll also unlock pricing tools, which basically allows you to mass change your prices of your cards. For example, you can set all the cards in your inventory to market price, or you can change it to the average price. You can change it to a whole bunch of different prices. You also get access to the price differential reports, which basically allows you to see every single one of your cards that you have listed, and it's ordered in the amount of money that the card differences or like differences from the market price. So if the market price is 20 and you have it listed for 30, it'll be up there. It'll say that it should be cheaper because it's $10 more expensive. So
I guess that's it for really all that is for the level normal sellers. Those are mostly what the average person is because
most people are just
that's where a lot of your cards are coming from. Then I guess we can talk about the different types of sellers beyond just normal generic levels. So there's direct sellers. So these are people that sell only through TCGPlayer Direct, and then what they do is they actually send their card to TCGPlayer, and then that card, along with all the other cards that were ordered through TCGPlayer Direct, then are packaged together and then shipped to your house. Yeah. So they only have to ship towards one place, and they have larger packages. And I think that's pretty much all there is to say. There's not a lot of people that are direct sellers. I don't even know how you... What do you have to
It's pretty easy to become a direct seller. You just have to have a high feedback rating.
Oh, well, it's still, I guess, more work, and you probably make a little less money, maybe.
There's also verified sellers, which basically just means that the seller is it's verified by TCGPlayer, which means that it's a good seller. They send it fast. They send it in good condition. They send it how it is listed. And to become a verified seller, you must be a star seller or a verified game store through TCGPlayer. So
we'll talk about those next, I think, right? So the Gold Star seller, like you mentioned, they are someone who has 100 sales in the last 90 days, and they have to have a 99.5% feedback rating.
So basically like almost perfect.
And then they have a gold star icon, which just shows the seller that they are, more trustworthy.
Yeah.
And then I guess there's also the verified hobby shops, which can become the verified seller, and those are actual official local game stores that
real life
have been verified with TCGPlayer. And then at that point, people know that there's a little bit more trust going on there. So unless you're a brick and mortar store, you can't do that. So that won't matter for pretty much everyone watching the video. So I guess we can talk about the reviews and feedback and maintaining your seller.
Yeah, so the next section is reviews and feedback. And basically, when you're a seller, you have a feedback rating. And the feedback rating is determined by the different reviews that you get. So if you get a low review and a high review, you'll get a percentage depending on that. So if you don't, most people will not leave reviews. It's not something a lot of people do. Out of the like 1,000 sales that I've had, or 500 sales that I've had, probably only 100 of them have left an actual review. But if they don't leave a review, so after the EDD, which is usually 12 to 15 days after you send the card, after 5 days after the EDD date, it will be marked as 5 stars. So you will not receive no stars. You will get 5 stars. So it balances out a little bit. You also have a message board in your seller account, and you'll get messages if people want refunds / if they want info or are asking about an order. They can send you a message on the message board, and you will get an email every time you get a message. So
you want to respond to those to keep your rating high.
Yeah, if you don't respond to them, they will
it could be a seller asking about condition, shipment, or
exactly. So you don't want to ignore those sometimes you get TCGPlayer messages and it scares the crap out of you because you get messages and you don't realize it's from TCGPlayer.
They just want to tell you about the new cards that you can list.
Exactly.
Okay, so I guess that's enough about that. Let's move on to talking about shipping. So shipping, until you're a level 4 seller, you actually can't change your shipping, and it's set at 99 cents by default for cards. It's a little bit more for sealed product, I think. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but so at that point, once you get to level 4, which is your goal when you're selling cards on TCGPlayer, is pretty much that's where you aim to be. You want to set your shipping to about 78 cents, because at that point you're able to have more competing prices with the other people on TCGPlayer.
Most people on TCGPlayer have a 78 cents shipping.
And so shipping as itself, obviously the lower your shipping, the more sales you get. But if you go too low, you're losing money in shipping, because you have to buy the stamp and the envelope. So I guess and then talk about packaging. So it's not much about it. A lot of people, they use the stuff that they get cards in. So if they order a card, it comes in a top loader, they use that top loader and send it out again.
Yeah.
That's what I do,
Yeah, and we so most cards are sent in envelopes, just normal white envelopes with a stamp. But if you sell more expensive cards, you should probably put them in a bubble mailer so they don't get damaged during shipping. And if a card is over $49.99, you actually have to put tracking on it. So having a bubble mailer for tracking is most ideal because it's going to be sent with, most likely be sent with packages. And if you have an envelope, it's probably going to get destroyed. And if you sell something that's over $250, it has to have signed confirmation. So the person has to sign to get the card. So
most people don't sell $250 cards too often, but it is something you have to be aware of. So I guess we meant about earlier, but so when you sell sealed product, the shipping's obviously a bit more because it's usually a bit bigger. Booster box can't quite fit in an envelope. You need more than a single stamp.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways. There's a bunch of different kinds of product you can sell on TCGPlayer, and like sealed product, like you said, the shipping's gonna be more. There's different prices for shipping. We'll get into that later. It must be unopened. You can't sell an open booster box. And so I guess, yeah. So there's different shipping prices. The normal, like just singles, is like usually around 78 cents, like we said. But you also have shipping prices for sealed product, large packages like oversized cards. That would be considered a larger package. And then if you sell like internationally, that shipping price can be different too. But you could once you reach level 4, you can change all those different shipping.
Yep, and they all can be different levels. Yeah. So you don't have to mess with anything. So, okay.
So next, if you sell damaged or like graded cards, like what I mean by that is like near mint, moderately played, stuff like that. You have to grade your cards carefully. If the seller or the buyer does not agree with the grade that you gave the card when you sold it, they can ask for a refund and they'll send it back and you have to refund them. It's part of the TCGPlayer seller agreement. We'll get into that a little bit later too. So you can also sell with photos. So when you're selling a card with and without photos, you can, when you list a card, you can add a photo into it, and it basically allows you to add more information about the card. So if you're selling a damaged card, you can take a picture of the damaged card, and then you can list how it's damaged. So if it has water damage, or if it got scratches on it, or if it like maybe part of it's removed on the back, has white spots, stuff like that.
Sharpie around the border.
Yep, like Sharpie around the border. Yep, have my fair share of that. And it also allows for a custom name, so you can explain the damage, or if you're selling signed cards, you can explain in the title that who it's signed by. And it's important though to realize that if you're selling signed cards on TCGPlayer, you have to mark them as damaged because they are damaged, they are written on. But if you want to sell signed cards on TCGPlayer, a good way to do that would be to list it as damaged with a photo, take a picture of the card, and then list who it's signed by. So there's quite a bit of people that go around looking for those types of things. So, yeah.
Not as much as the rest of TCGPlayer, but it's something to be aware of. So,
and if you didn't know that you could actually look for signed cards, you can also do that too. You can look on TCGPlayer for those things. So,
the more you know. Okay.
So our next section.
Talking about seller responsibilities. So once you become a seller on TCGPlayer, there's a few things you have to worry about. Or not worry about, just make sure you follow along. So there's the seller agreement that you have to worry about. And that basically says if a card gets lost, it's the seller's problem. Yep. So seller has to refund the buyer. So just, again, you always have to work with the people that buy your cards. Otherwise, your rating's going to drop and then you're going to have problems selling.
Exactly. And the whole, like, damaged cards, people not agreeing with the condition is a part of that. You have to refund if they don't like the...
Yeah, have to refund if they don't like it. Otherwise, they can leave a bad review.
Cards need to be shipped within 3 business days of someone ordering it. If they aren't, it TCGPlayer emails you asking for you to complete the...
Yep, they want you to confirm shipment.
And if they aren't shipped within 5 days, it will be disputed, and the buyer can request a refund at that moment. So,
I guess we should just confirm business days are just Monday through Friday.
Yeah, not Saturday and Sunday, and or holidays. Yep,
included too. So, In case you're wondering why someone hasn't shipped your card, that could be why. Could have been a random holiday.
Messages that aren't responded to within 3 days will alert the buyer. So if you don't respond to a message, it'll let them know that you haven't seen their message yet, and it'll basically alert them so they can, if they want a refund, they can process a refund through TCGPlayer at that point. And then the last thing for seller responsibilities is you have to complete a tax form before you.
Yep, because eventually, if you were to make enough money, you could be taxed on it. So that's just something to be concerned about or aware of.
Before getting paid, you have to fill out the tax info form, which they prompt you to fill it out once you
actually make an account. So,
and that segues into our next section, which is getting paid.
The best part.
Yeah.
So there's a few different options when getting paid from TCGPlayer. You can get store credit or you can get direct deposit to your bank account. So if you were to get store credit, you're usually going to get a little bit more. There's going to be a little less of a fee, and then it's going to happen on Mondays and Thursdays after the estimated delivery date has passed, and then you'll get paid for those cards that you sold. And then if you were to have direct deposit, it would be Monday and Thursday as well, except it could take up to 4 more days for the bank transfer to occur.
Yep. So it takes a little bit longer if you choose.
And you get real money, but you get a little less real money. So
we'll get into the fees in our next section, which is fees. So fees, best part, right?
Oh yes, very much so.
So each seller level or the different types of sellers have different fees. So for marketplace sellers, the fee is for the different levels 1 through 4. All of them are the same. It's 10.25%, and this is after shipping.
Yep. So you are feed for your shipping.
Yep. So if you're a pro seller that's non-direct, it's 9.25%. If you're a direct seller but you're not a pro seller, it's 8.95%. So it's a little bit less. And then if you're a direct seller but you're a pro, it's 8.95%, but you get a 2.5% pro fee since there's a lot more money being made through the pro direct thing. So yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but you also get 10 times as many orders, so it all equals out.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about what we should list, right?
Yeah. So the different cards we should list.
So I guess rares and mythics always will sell better than, not always, but most rares and mythics will sell more than most commons and uncommons.
So always list your mythics and rares, basically.
The same thing is like anything over $1. Yeah. If at that point it has some interest in it, so people.
That's not obviously rares and mythics too, but anything over $1 that's not rares and mythics.
Like Eternal Witness, Counterspell.
That kind of stuff will sell really, really, really well.
So, and then cards that are also very popular are cards that do multiple things, and there's a bunch of different types of these. One of these is like MDFCs, like those lands from Zendikar.
Yeah, so the ones that just like you have 2 sides, you pick a side. Same thing with like the split cards. So split cards have 2 different things that you can do for them.
So there's like the ones with fuse. Some of them don't have fuse, and then some of them have.
Something I didn't list down here, but also some cards that do multiple things, like the new like the Dungeons and Dragons cards, the ones that you can pick a thing.
Yep. And
also cards that say like choose 1 or more. Those usually sell pretty well too, because it's always an option. Yep. Option cards are always the best because it's like 2 cards. Yeah, it's like having 2 cards. Transform and flip cards sell pretty well. Kind of in the same boat as the MDFCs and stuff, but like Curious Homunculus and Lone Rider, they usually sell fairly well. Usually sell a little bit more than the regular uncommon and common bulk. Yep. Ramp spells.
Yep, people like ramping, so like Skyshard Claim, 3 visits, ramp and growth, even
Mana Rocks, ramp, land ramp, anything.
Some of them won't make you as much money, but they definitely will sell quickly, which can help you get sales, which helps you level up as a seller. So, other popular stuff is like legendary creatures, because a lot of most popular format is Commander, and legendary creatures are.
Do you have any legendaries in your Commander deck?
Just a few. And then a lot of tribal stuff sells really well too, like stuff that is just tribal synergistic, like Door of Destinies, Metallic Mimic, like that stuff is good. And then 2 tribes that sell particularly well are dragons and elves,
which are the 2 most popular tribes in Magic. So usually those sell fairly well.
Those will sell pretty well. And and not all elves, but like elves that are decent in elf decks. So I guess cards that are also sell well are like pretty cards. So like have alternate art, basic lands, alternate art, other cards like extended art.
Yeah, extended art, borderless, old border, all that stuff. I usually sell fairly off, like pretty often.
Yeah.
Pretty basic lands too, like the premium basic lands, unstable,
like
unhinged,
new Kamigawa set.
Exactly, all that stuff, and a lot lately has been very pretty basic lands, and they sell fairly well for a pretty hefty price. I think the Kamigawa lands are going for like $2 a piece right now, so it's like half the pack.
Make your money back. Okay. And then also like staples for any format.
Yeah.
So like, for Commander we have like Soul Ring and Arcane Signet, but anything that's good in Standard at the moment.
Yeah.
Any card that they deem worthy of banning probably was at one point worth selling.
Exactly.
So also, I guess it's kind of like part of a premium, but a lot of the Magic the Gathering community likes the old border cards.
Yeah.
So those can be worth quite a bit more. And there's a lot of people that actually actively hunt for those cards. Yeah, so, and
so our next section is cards that don't sell well. So very similar, but opposite. So these are cards that, I wouldn't say aren't worth listing, but you're not going to expect to sell these anytime soon. Yeah. So Unset Cards is a huge one.
Specifically the silver bordered ones.
Silver bordered cards, yeah. Obviously,
with the new Unset, it might be different because those are actually legal in Commander.
Yeah. But
so
the silver bordered cards usually don't sell very well because they're not played in any format. So yeah. Normal basic lands, just normal basic lands. That's all to say about it. They don't sell very well.
People usually have quite a few basic lands, and I also think that you should never get rid of your basic lands.
No, you should never get rid of your basic lands, just because you're always going to need basic lands and
always need lands. Lands make a deck go round. So, and then also like cheap foil cards don't sell very well.
2-cent foils.
Just because they're not the first thing that comes up when people optimize their cart. And
not a lot of people are going for foil. Not a lot of people put stuff in their cart and see, oh, this 2-cent uncommon, I'm gonna do a foil instead. It's not something that people have at the top of their minds. So it's not something that's. When I have cheap foil cards, I don't even list them as foil. I just list them normally because they sell worse than normal. Like a 5-cent foil is gonna sell worse than like a 10-cent of the same card. It's yeah.
So yeah, there's not much else to say about that. So cards that don't sell well, or another ones are like cards that are restrictive. So like cards like Plummet or Broken Wings that deal with destroying a very specific creature.
Just specific stuff, unless that specific thing is like very generic, like creature.
Destroy target creature though. Yeah,
but destroy target flying creature.
That's not going to come up in every game, so it's not worth a card slot in most people's decks, and
plus they're usually uncommon, common bulk. So when they open packs, they usually have a bunch anyway.
Draft Chaff always doesn't very sell well.
And the last thing that doesn't really sell well is non-English cards, unless they are pretty expensive or they're staples.
Yeah, or they're the Japanese altar ones from Strixhaven.
Yeah, but that's more of like a premium card.
Yeah.
So yeah, non-English cards that like just bulk non-English cards just do not sell.
Because those don't get optimized by TCG's card optimizers, so it's even harder to get people to buy them.
Which, if you didn't know, buying alternate art rares like a Teferi's Protection, $30 card, in another language, it's like $12. So that's something to think about.
You can't read the card, but...
No, but everyone knows what that is.
Yeah, so...
Hopefully. All right. So our last little section for our TCG Player, how to sell on TCG Player video is mistakes not to make. So do not undervalue your cards. If someone buys a lot of your cards, you're going to lose a lot of money. So even if it's not the lowest price listed, people may optimize their cart and you might come up first because they bought a lot from you. So always have your price be pretty reasonable. Obviously if it's a $5 card, it doesn't matter that much if it's off by 10 cents, but your 10-cent rare that people have listed for 2 cents, is it really worth to sell a rare for 1 cent? Not really. So,
yeah. And just I have to make sure to keep your shipping in mind. You want to keep it at that point where you're still selling a lot of cards, but you're not losing money on shipping.
Exactly. That kind of goes hand in hand with
yeah. But and you also want to make sure you grade your cards accurately, because if you sell it and then someone wants a refund and then you don't get the card back and then got some problems there.
Out.
Yep. So
that's pretty much it for our video on how to sell on TCGPlayer. But we're starting a new little thing that we're going to do each video called the weekly card. So we're going to generate a random card from Gather, and we're going to talk about it in general, in Commander, in some other formats it may have been in. But this week's card is Brushwag, which is not a great card in any format.
It's a 3/2 for 2 green and a generic, and it says whenever it blocks or becomes blocked, it gets -2/+2 until end of turn.
So when it blocks or becomes blocked, it gets higher health, but it does less damage.
Yeah, it doesn't do much.
It's not a very great card. I mean,
it's not cheap though.
yeah, it's $4 for it's Mirage printing, which is the only printing, right?
Yep. That's only because it hasn't been printed, and it probably will never be printed again.
No, it's just it's an old card that. How much? I wonder how much. Oh, there probably is no foil version, huh?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, that'd be funny. See how expensive that is. So that's basically it for our thing. Sometimes we'll go a lot more in detail with the card, but this week's card was fairly, not great. So.
Not much to say about it.
But so we're also doing another new section called the Adjournment. And basically we're going to talk about latest Magic news that doesn't necessarily have to do with the video we're talking about.
Just our way to add a little bit of something different to the
Exactly.
videos. So I guess we're going to talk about what we think of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty so far.
Yep.
So
what do you think they should do?
So, when I first looked through the cards, I didn't see a whole lot of stuff that caught my eye. I mean, other than the lands that are very powerful. Specifically Boseiju is probably a little too strong. Or at least a little too...
but even then, that card, compared to some others that have been some sets, is,
Yeah, we've gotten a lot more broken cards recently. Boseiju is good, but it doesn't win anyone the game on turn 2. It just adds a little bit...
Which is good. That's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Want that.
Yeah, I really like how this set as overall was. It didn't feel like any one card, was incredibly, format warping other than, I guess, the lands, which are auto-includes. But, there's no Jeweled Lotus that wins you the game on turn 3.
Yeah. So, I really like the set. I really love the set. I loved how they made it in the future, but they also didn't make it futuristic, really. You know what I mean? It was like fantasy future. And I also really like that there wasn't that many powerful cards in Commander. I mean, obviously Boseiju is really good, but it's not a Jeweled Lotus, so...
Another thing, too, is I liked the... there's quite a few, niche cards, I feel. I mean, there's the one Tribal Creature Land, which I guess that's not really niche, but I think that's...
It's a fun card.
It's a good card to have, and more cards like that are always good. And it probably...
Right now.
It probably could use a reprint already for it being an uncommon. Another card I liked is Mech Hanger.
Mech Hanger, yeah.
I thought that was an interesting idea,
Fun
giving
card.
the ability of a vehicle to turn into a creature without a creature. It's not amazing or anything, but it's just kind of a cool card to exist, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's a fun card. And some of the commanders from the set, too, were pretty fun. The mech guy.
Yeah,
That guy's pretty fun.
I like the card that gives everything ninjutsu. But...
That one was kind of fun, too. The new Jin Kataxis.
No, you're a bad person.
Hey, it wasn't as bad as the last one, though.
No, you're right.
Yeah, so that's about it for our video. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe and share with everybody that may be interested in learning about how to sell on TCGPlayer. And that's about it. Bye-bye.